We want and expect family ties to last forever. From infancy forward, we naturally seek lasting bonds that will make us feel safe and loved. Yet sadly, as people change and move through life, family ties can fray and even break, sometimes permanently. Such fractures are sometimes for the best, especially when abusive dynamics are causing substantial harm. However, when the cause of estrangement is a mystery, when family members feel cut off without cause, ongoing pain and suffering result. Can or should family estrangement be healed? Today, we'll focus on this listener's real-life question. As of last year, my daughter refuses to talk to me and my husband. She's now 28 and has moved to another state with her boyfriend. She has a little bit of contact with our son, but won't have anything to do with us. We were good parents, and I don't know what we've done wrong. I never thought our family would be divided like this. What can I do if she won't talk to me? And with that question as the focus of today's episode, I'm Dr. Carla Marie Manley, and this is Imperfect Love.
Welcome to Imperfect Love with Dr. Carla Marie Manley, psychologist, author, and relationship expert. I'm here to help unravel mysteries and misconceptions about love, relationships, and mental health issues, plus everything in between. Love is complicated, people are not perfect, and relationships surely can be tough. Together, we'll navigate this messy, imperfect space of real life.
Please note, as this episode contains sensitive information, listener discretion is advised. If you need support, please see the special links in the show notes. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Aimee Palmer, who will be sharing her expertise on family estrangement. Aimee is the founder of Parents of Estranged Adult Children, pronounced Peace. First, Aimee, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Could you tell us a little bit about what makes you you before we launch into today's subject matter?
Well, I'm from the Midwest. I am a mother of 2 adult children. I've been married to my husband for 27 years, and we knew we were getting married by our second date. So that's kind of a fun fact. I have been doing my dream job when I retired from my career in advertising after my daughter was born. So I've been home and taking care of my family ever since, and I absolutely love it.
That's so beautiful. And I do have to ask, how did you know by your second date that he was the one?
I'm crazy. We both had similar values. We both were looking for the same thing. And, when he called me to ask me out on our first date, I said, I'm looking for somebody who wants to get married and have kids and go to church with me. If you're not that guy, that's not on your radar, there's no point in us going out. So
there you go.
You get to be 29 years old. I kind of knew what I was looking for at that point. So, and it's been a road, but it's been a really wonderful one. And he's a great husband to me.
Oh, it sounds just wonderful. And I know from your background that it hasn't always been rainbows and butterflies and cupcakes for you. So could you tell us a little bit about what drew you to create the Peace Foundation?
Absolutely. Well, I became a member of the club nobody wants to belong to in 2017, when then my only daughter, who was, she was my only daughter. She was then 18 years old, but she was a senior in high school. And she had met a boy and his family, and she estranged from our entire family, not just my husband and I, who was her dad, but everyone. And I was completely devastated. I never saw it coming. I'm normally an upbeat kind of person, outgoing, and I found myself struggling to just function. I ruminated on it. That's all I could think about. I didn't want to go any place because I just didn't want to run into anybody that I might know, that I might have to start crying in front of. I just didn't know what would happen because the emotions are so high in estrangement. So I was struggling, some days to even get out of bed. And I thought, I need help. I need a support group. And I never really knew too many people that this happened to. And when I started looking for a support group, there really wasn't one in my area. And back in 2017, there wasn't a lot online either. Unfortunately, it's really ramped up and there's a lot more resources. It's good because resources are available now, but unfortunately, estrangement is on the rise. So I decided to start Peace as part of a ministry. I felt the Lord calling me to do this. It was not something that I really wanted to do. I felt very ill-equipped. I was just a hurting parent and wanted to help others along the way. So the rest is history. I started in a very small church here in Wisconsin, and my first meeting, I had 17 people, which blew me away. I thought if one other person showed up, it would be a success. And then we just kept going from there. And now I have online groups that meet in every time zone in the U.S. We have lovely facilitators along with myself that have just really helped people every week and every month come and just be a part of this community, because there is strength in numbers. And for every time I hear I thought I was the only one, it just spurs me on and keep going, because so much shame involved in estrangement that people don't share. And so they don't know. So I applaud you for bringing this topic out and just having a discussion about it, because we can't change what we don't acknowledge. And so I really think it's important to acknowledge this is an issue in our culture right now.
I am so excited for our conversation today, because I know I can already feel tears were coming to my eyes as I was listening to your story. My heart was getting tight. It is such an important topic, and one that I can't even imagine going through what you were going through, because that kind of separation from a child, when it's inexplicable, you don't know what's happened, you haven't, there's no cause, nothing identifiable, is extremely traumatic. And I also would actually like to ask one question before we get going. When you talk about ministry, for our listeners, those who might want to find you and check out your resources, is it based on just a specific religion or faith, or can anyone come to your support groups?
Thank you so much for asking. That is such an important question. Everyone is welcome at Peace. We love everyone to come and join us. I always tell people right off the bat, I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus. So if that's something that you find, a little bit of issue with, then this isn't the group for you. But we have people who are Jewish. We have people who are Muslim. We have people who are Buddhist. We have people who have no faith, Catholics. It doesn't matter. We're here because we're estranged from our adult children. And that's really what we focus on. But I would be remiss in not saying that it has been my faith that has helped me not only survive estrangement, but thrive in it.
Absolutely. And I think that faith, regardless of somebody's religion or spirituality, faith is something that unites us all. And when there are ruptures, it is faith that unites us, and these commonalities of knowing I am not the only one. There are other people I can listen to. They can support me. They can listen to me. It's so healing. And I think sometimes it is so beautiful that in your situation, it might be a faith-based platform or faith-based energy that drew you to create it, but you're saying, come one, come all. Just let's work on healing and bringing light to this growing problem of people walking away from their families, even if there was nothing toxic happening. Or let's use the word abusive, because I think let's set some foundations here first before we get going. As you know, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I really like to use terminology that will help our listeners from the get-go understand things like abusive behavior. That there are times, and I think you and I might agree on this, that there are times where we do want to have really strong boundaries with family members. If somebody in the family is abusing someone physically,
Of course.
Physical abuse, emotional abuse, to where they're just chronically criticizing, demoralizing, making it so that person is getting anxious, depressed, their self-worth is dwindling. If there is spiritual abuse, if somebody is not being accepted because of their faith. So we want to really look and set the stage for saying there are some times where we do want to have a very strong boundary with family members so that we can heal, we can feel safe, we can feel loved and able to expand as human beings. But that estranging from one's family without something abusive really being in the works just because you no longer want to be there, that is, I think, where we're looking at the estrangement as being really problematic. When you're leaving, you're not trying to create a cure. You're not trying to create a connection. You're leaving because you feel like, I don't need my family anymore. They've bothered me. They're not the ideal family, and so I'm just going to leave them behind. Things like that. Is that what you find a lot of?
So I always say that estrangement is never a good idea unless it total estrangement, unless it's a situation of abuse. What we're finding right now is that it is kind of the thing to do in our culture to estrange from your family for many reasons. Some things might be as simple as different political views. So I can say, I don't agree with separating from your family because they don't vote the same way you do. And maybe that causes you some distress. So I can't say that. But I can say in a relationship, it's never going to be perfect, right? So we have to work together and work through those things together as a family. And I think if you estrange completely, you're really robbing future generations of really critical relationships, like with grandparents. So it's a slippery slope, we'll say.
Thank you for that. And I love that you were talking about the political piece, because to me, family, whether it's biological or family by choice, whatever, right? It is so important. And I talk a lot about this in my most recent book, The Joy of Imperfect Love. True love is about us allowing others to have their perspectives. Mm-hmm. True love is about us allowing ourselves to evolve and grow, to see others' perspectives. We don't need to agree with them. Certainly we can but we can make space. And when we do that, we are not creating this I'm right, you're wrong mentality. I'm good, you're bad. My party's great, yours is awful. Instead, we can even have healthy discussions around that and say, well, tell me why you like this, political person or this political measure that's, on the ballot. Tell me why it's important to you. And to be able to grow the self by listening. Again, listening does not mean we agree. We don't have to agree, but we can build our sense of tolerance for our own beings, but also for other people's beings. And I think that's something that the world has really lost right now, that ability to be tolerant of other people's religions, of their political views, of their personal views, of their views around gender and all sorts of things, that if we're able to create more space within the self, then we create more space for other people.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think we've lost somewhere the ability to agree to disagree somewhere along the line. And, in my own situation, my daughter and I are completely opposite in a lot of our beliefs and values, but we can still have a loving relationship despite those things. And I think we have learned, both her and I, because we are reunited most recently, so reconnected. So I think both her and I have learned from each other and in different topics, just being able to listen, because God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we should be doing more listening to other people than doing it with our own mouth.
Absolutely. And I grew up in a family with 10 kids, and most often, I think our mouths were pretty much shut because, children were seen and not heard kind of thing. Yet we had a large number of aunts and uncles. And I can tell you the differences and it was very welcoming because everyone was different. There were so many unique ways of being. And I have cousins that are artists and some that are, helicopter pilots and all sorts of things, that you learn that your world gets richer. It actually gets bigger when you allow yourself to make space for differences and not see them as a threat, but see them as an invitation of other things that are on the horizon. And I grew up Catholic, actually, and in my own family, things were very tight, very controlled. Yet as I moved out into the world, I realized, oh, there's so much more beyond this black and whiteness and so much to be seen and enjoyed. And then my tolerance grew. And then as I became, a psychologist, my tolerance and my awe of other people's perspectives. I might not agree with someone, but my awe of somebody's ability to describe what their perspective is and what their interests are and why they choose this and why they are in this political party or this political demonstration. We can learn so much if, as you said, and this really applies to families, instead of wanting somebody to be just like us, if we can see them as imperfect, unique beings, because we are all imperfect, unique beings, and just allow people, as long as people are not being abusive, allow them to be them. What is that the kind of energy in your work that you encourage families to embrace?
Yes, we work primarily with the parents. And so when I am hosting a group, whether it's in person or online, we are coming around and supporting and encouraging and offering resources to those parents whose lives are devastated. So it's more about that, because so many of them have been cut off and they don't know why. So they're never even given the opportunity, like you're saying, to learn more or to, have the opportunity to just listen and find out what's going on, because they're often not given that chance. So really at Peace, we focus on supporting the parents and how to get sometimes even just through a day or through a major holiday. So your child's birthday is, or Mother's Day or Father's Day, Christmas, Hanukkah, all those things are devastating when you are not in a relationship with your child.
And that makes perfect sense, because as human beings, our brains want things to make sense. We want to understand. We want the puzzle pieces to fit. And particularly, as you're talking about, for parents who, we all have our visions of what the future is going to look like. Even, next year, celebrating the holidays together, taking a family vacation, meeting over Zoom, whatever it might be, and to have that taken from you with no explanation could certainly propel a parent, a loving parent, into anxiety, depression, or worse. So what have you found, Aimee, as some of the key reasons, if parents ever get reasons, what are some of the key reasons that adult children decide to estrange themselves? We've already talked about political differences. What are some of the other reasons?
So I like to refer to as a third party. And a third party can look several different ways. So a third party, like in my situation, was my daughter's boyfriend and his family. A third party can be an ex-spouse. So it can be, parental alienation, where one ex-spouse turns the adult children against the other spouse. It can be a daughter-in-law. It can be a member of our own family. I have someone in my group who is an identical twin, and it is her sister who is the third party who has come in between her and her child. So it can also be addiction. The third party can be addiction. So there's lots of different reasons. And it doesn't always, I want to clarify too, it can be a completely cut off no contact relationship, or it can be a strained relationship where maybe it's just not the relationship that you had expected or had at one time. Maybe there's just, a phone call on your birthday or something. So it's a strange, or it could be a strained relationship. It can kind of be the same thing.
Got it. And I like how you show us those two differences, because the estranged is the full disconnection. The strained is what was once a flowing relationship, a connected relationship, now feels as though there's this inexplicable disconnect, one that's you can't really find out what the issue is. So what do you encourage? What are some of the key tools that you offer to these parents?
I want to jump back just one,
yes,
if you don't
yes,
mind. And
please.
the other part that I didn't talk about is social media. I think social media is playing a very big piece right now in estrangement. I think there's lots of people making money on TikTok and YouTube in encouraging adult children to estrange from their family. They will give them the step-by-step, instructions how to do it for, $29.99. So I think that culture right now and social media is also playing a part in estrangement. It's kind of the thing to do. As far as tools and resources.
Let's pause. Sorry.
Oh.
That was too big of a piece for me to let go.
Sorry.
Oh, no, please. It makes me angry to hear that, because family is so precious.
It is.
Family is so precious. To my mom and dad, family was everything. And family is so precious. To have anyone out there making money off of creating heartache is abysmal. It is unconscionable. And because I believe firmly, truly, that, again, talk about it in the Joy of Imperfect Love, in all my books, how home is where we start from. Home is where we get our roots in a very chaotic world. Home, whether it's a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever it is, 10 kids, right? It might not ever be perfect, right? But we do want to do our best to create a safe environment with our family members so that we are that force against the topsy-turvy world. We are that force, no matter how big the family is, again, whether it's a family of 1 or, 10. When we really look at how important that is for our well-being, our mental health, our physical health, to have that family structure, to know that even if we're not under the same roof, that, we can reach out to mom and say, Mom, I'm having a hard day. Can I have a virtual hug? Or, reach out to grandma, or reach out to your son, say, hey, babe, how you doing? I'm missing you like crazy, right? All of those things are so important. Again, not just for our mental health, but for our emotional health, our physical health, because as animals, we do far better when we feel safe, loved, secure, seen. And family, when we invest in it, is our most enduring source of the connection that keeps our well-being in top form. So to hear you say that there are people out there in social media, well, I don't have anything kind to say about that, because it is unkind. When you are dismantling family systems, when there is not abuse present, you are doing harm. And as you said, not just to this generation, that harm is substantial enough, but then you are robbing parents of seeing their grandchildren. You are robbing nieces and nephews. You are robbing those grandchildren of growing up around an adoring grandma or grandpa who just, I never knew my grandparents, but I imagine it would be just wonderful to have someone doting on you like that, just loving you up. So it does make me both sad and angry to hear that. And part of me wants to say, I want to go check them out on TikTok. But the other part of me is saying, no, I'm not. I'm not going to give them one view. So thank you for letting me know about that and any other forms of social media where that's happening. We can advise our listeners, maybe stay clear of that. It sounds very, very destructive.
Well, and there is always two sides, right? So if you get on Reddit and you're, on this thread of how to estrange from your parents, there is two sides always to everything. And I think our family really makes us who we are, both, genetically, right? And just, it's the nurture versus nature kind of thing too. I mean, but just in your home and what your parents teach you and, how to cook or how to live your life or it just makes us who we are. And extended family is a huge piece of that, whether it's grandparents, like you said, nieces, nephews, uncles, aunts, it's all part of it. And that's why it's so important to try to preserve that for you and for generations down the line, if, again, abuse aside.
And I 100% agree with you because I think my family growing up was far from perfect, far from it. But I certainly did know that my dad and my mom would never have cut one of us off. No matter what happened, they believed in family and they didn't know how to love the way that I understand love today, but for their generation, they did really try, and they gave us, good education and all of the material things that we, required to survive kind of thing and even thrive. But we want to, before we really step back from any parent, we want to be able to at least try to have conversations, to say to someone, I am taking a time out. And I'm a big believer in this. There are times in life where we do have to have boundaries in family relationships that are strong and uncomfortable. But ideally, again, unless somebody's being abusive, we want to be able to say, I need a timeout. I'm going to take a 30-day timeout because I've been trying to talk to you about not criticizing me, and you keep criticizing me, and I end up feeling really hurt and unloved by it. So I'm going to take 30 days to, have a timeout, and then in 30 days, I'd like to talk with you about maybe we can do family counseling together where we can learn to have different dynamics between us. And I think things like that can be helpful to give people breathing space and a chance to recalibrate. But again, I have a hard time with, as you were saying, the trend to basically divorce a family without saying what's wrong or giving it a chance to heal. And it says a lot about a parent if they're hurting from the estrangement. There are some parents who are estranged and they don't care because they never invested a lot in the family to begin with. And I'm not talking about those parents because we can understand why there's a division. Nobody was investing or the parent wasn't investing. But when there's a parent who's truly showing, I care about you. I want to be part of your life. Tell me what I can do. If I've erred in some way, let me correct it. And when that is occurring, and it sounds like you're getting a lot of people like that, it doesn't make sense for an adult child to not try to reach toward them and see if connection, slow but sure, is possible. What do you think about that?
Well, the vast majority of the parents that come to peace are absolutely devastated by this. And it was not their choice in the matter. And like I said, it's often contributed to a third party. Most recently, we see a ton of daughter-in-laws who are severing the relationship. And I think the sons are just trying to be good husbands or good boyfriends and vice versa. It happens the other way around too. But it's just so tragic because we are robbing people of these relationships. And you're absolutely right. There is no such thing as perfect parents or a perfect family. It doesn't exist. And when this happens to you from a parent, and you talked about this before, that your brain tries to make sense of it. And so you ruminate on it all the time and you can't think of anything else because our brains are trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense, because we were designed to be in our families. We just were.
We are, and I love talking about the Harlow monkey studies back from the 50s, where these poor rhesus monkeys were given, some were just caged up and given nothing. Some were given the choice of a wire mother with food and a cloth mother with no food. And they so much wanted the warmth of the cloth mother that they would leave the food to just cling. And all of the monkeys, but particularly those that were in isolation and then those that were just given the wire mother, they did not function well. Their mental health, they had very aberrant behavior. And we learned from that the importance of healthy attachment in our relationships. And it's one of the reasons I really embrace attachment theory, is because it's so well researched, and we can see that when you have a parent reaching toward a child, and it's interesting, just taking a loop back to what you said about it often being a daughter-in-law. Not to say that all daughter-in-laws are bad, right? There are amazing daughter-in-laws out there, but it actually mirrors what I've seen in my practice. That it's often a mother coming and saying, or a mother and father coming and saying, things were great, but when so-and-so got married, his wife won't let us see the grandchild. His wife won't let us, see the 2 grandkids now, whatever it might be. And I agree with you. It's often that the wife, for her own issue, whatever her own issues are, whether it's an attachment issue, unresolved trauma from childhood, whatever's happening, anxiety, becomes extremely possessive and then does not let the mom and dad. And it's, of course, not the same in every estranged family, but I agree with you. It is more and more a common issue.
It is. And you're absolutely right. It is not every daughter-in-law, and it can be a son-in-law. In my case, it was a boyfriend. And it can happen at any stage too. That's the other thing. It doesn't always have to be as soon as they get married. It can, all of a sudden they've been married and you think everything is fine. Maybe the first child's come, you've had a relationship, you used to babysit, and then all of a sudden the relationship is severed, or it gradually diminishes where you're not allowed to see your grandchildren anymore, although you babysat for them for years. And I don't know, I go back to social media again and our culture, and the thing to do is it's kind of the buzz right now.
Well, want to be careful of the trends we embrace, because there are certain trends like maybe Barbie pink being in and then black being in or whatever. Those don't do really too much harm except to the environment, but in our pocketbooks. But when we follow a trend where we are breaking other people's hearts, where we are affecting their mental health, we really want to pause. And this goes to the concept of imperfect love. The reason I really love that phrase is I take it as a right and a responsibility that we all are imperfect. But imperfect doesn't mean it's an excuse. Imperfect means we look to our past, imperfect love. We look to our past, see what our parents did that was great, if anything, and embrace it and carry it forward. Maybe there were holiday traditions. Maybe they gave us cuddles, whatever it is. And the things our parents didn't do well, no shame, no blame. That doesn't get us anywhere. But to look at it and say, I'm learning a lesson from this. I don't want to carry that forward. And then as we continue to work on the self and really embrace more of what is healthy and makes us feel good and makes other people feel good, and let go of that which isn't healthy, the more we evolve as mindful, healthy human beings. And that rarely happens when someone is cut off. Again, and I keep saying this, unless abuse is involved. If there is some sort of abuse, then you actually can't grow when abuse is present. But if there's something that a parent has done to offend you, or a child has done to offend you, cutting the tie with out trying to work it, and I know we've talked about this again, but it's worth emphasizing. It's always important for self-growth and relationship growth to be able to have those conversations so that people understand your perspective, understand what's happening for you, even if it means you need a little bit of a timeout for a limited amount of time to recalibrate and then try again if that feels possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had asked me to before, talked about some resources. And I think you're kind of, when you're saying taking a pause and then maybe getting some counseling where you two are working together, meaning to both the parents and the adult child kind of working together in having a mediator of someone who is neutral that can help people communicate better. Because, communication is a big piece. Sometimes we just have difficulty. We need someone to say, so what I hear what you're saying, and doing that to help facilitate these conversations. I also think another key resource is being in a supportive environment where you can feel safe and you can share what's happened in your life, because so much of estrangement, part of what we suffer is silence, because we don't want people to know because of the shame. People are going to judge you and think, what kind of parent are you that your own child doesn't want to have anything to do with you? So we keep quiet about it. And so being in a supportive environment, like a support group, whether it's online or in person, is key. And reading, there's so many great books out there now. Dr. Joshua Coleman has written too, Dr. Sharon McGregor. There's lots of them out there that can help. And I think that one of the key things for people who are suffering through estrangement is to know that they're not alone. And reading these books and tapping into these resources is really key. And there's so many podcasts now too, which is wonderful. Back in 2017, there was none of this going on. So I just think what it would have meant to me initially, I think to have some of that support would have been great.
Absolutely, because support groups, and I'm a big proponent of them, not only are they often either free or far less expensive than individual therapy, there is so much good in sharing heartache that if you can't affect a change in the relationship, right, with the person you're estranged from, you can at least connect with people who get it, who won't shame you or blame you, where they too are saying, I have no idea what happened.
Yeah.
I was a good parent, or as good as I could be, and my child just stopped talking to me. And I feel so alone and broken and forlorn. And so I really appreciate you talking about the power of the support groups. Not that individual therapy, or if you're able to get the child into a family therapy environment where there is a wise third party, a mediator, because often, and I want to bring up something you said, we chatted just briefly before we came on the air. And so I want to highlight a piece that you said that's almost a cautionary tale for not only estranged people, but also for therapists to realize. You were saying that sometimes you believe that therapists are encouraging individuals to take a step back from their parents without having some conversations about why that might be necessary. They're just saying, hey, leave them high and dry.
Yes. I have heard from some of my parents who are actually therapists themselves, will have coworkers telling their clients to estrange, and they are shocked by it because there is no training really for estrangement that would recommend that, to my knowledge. And it's something that really wasn't covered in their education. So they're reaching out to groups like mine for asking for help for not only them, but also for their clients that are coming to see them. So yeah, it's a problem that therapists are sometimes recommending this, and they are diagnosing their clients' parents as narcissists or whatever without ever even meeting them or having a conversation. It happens time and time again.
Well, now, let's take a pause.
I want to say there are a lot of great therapists out there, and they're not everyone, I'm making a general, there are a lot of great therapists out there, and not everyone is doing this, but there are two sides always. And you can't make a diagnosis on someone, in my opinion, without actually meeting them, discussing with them. Right? You're the doctor, not me.
100%. We can see from what a client is telling us, we can see some signs of what their personality might be like,
Might.
but a solid clinician does not diagnose people, A, that they've never met or have been asked to diagnose, because people, if I meet someone at a party, they're like, "Are you diagnosing me?" Like, no, I'm having a conversation with you. You didn't hire me to diagnose you. And so, no, I'm not diagnosing you. It'd be like a heart surgeon going around saying, "Hey, can I listen to your heart and see if you have some blockage there?" No, we keep, we stay in our lane. And so for a psychotherapist to say, you need to estrange from this parent because I've never met them and they live across the country, but they are a narcissist, or they have borderline personality disorder, or this or that. The client may have suppositions, but the therapist will always want to steer clear of giving a formal DSM diagnosis, because that's not appropriate. And I really believe that before, again, absent abuse, that there are many things, and there's no, I'm not offering excuses here. I'm saying all parents have behaviors that are not perfect. Why? Because we're imperfect human beings and we learn as we go. Nobody gives us a course in it. And as much as that would be helpful. And so if as an adult you're seeing things in your connection to a child or a parent that gives you pause, reach out for family therapy. Have 1, 2, 3 sessions so that you can hear each other's perspectives, even if you don't agree with them. And I love this story because it's so interesting about how child and parent perspectives can differ. This child and the parent were talking, and the child was saying, "Do you remember when you drove us, 6 hours every Saturday to visit grandma, and how excruciating the drive was?" And da 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 da. And the mom said, "Honey, grandma lived about 10 minutes away, and we went once every other week." So it doesn't mean that the child's perspective is wrong. It just means, depending upon where you're sitting in the room or in the car, in this case, things will feel very different to each person. Time and experiences are based on where we're actually, physically, emotionally, and mentally at the time. And so in many cases, a child's perspectives, or even the parents' perspectives, they're very different. And that's one of the beauties of being able to do, I love doing, limited family therapy and couples therapy. Why? Because you have a chance to help people see that even if their perspectives are very different from each other, you're getting a window as that person's talking to you. If you can put aside let your defense mechanisms go down and put aside your personal perspective, you're getting a window into how that person perceived an encounter or a situation or an entire life stage. And that's where listening and the power of therapy to create this healing, it's so important, because just to cut someone off because you saw it on TikTok or a therapist said that's the way to do it, that doesn't sound like it allows for anyone to grow. It sounds like it allows for people to cut off and shut down, which is never positive for our mental health.
And sometimes they're cutting off with their family, not because they want to, but because they're being forced to by the third party. So that happens quite often. A controlling situation can be, in my daughter's case, that's what it was. My daughter didn't necessarily want to cut off her family, but she was in a relationship that he wanted that to happen. And so sometimes that is the case. And sadly, people live in those situations, and I would call it abusive. Abuse doesn't always have to mean that you have bruises on your face. It can look in different ways. It can be financial, or it can be, you're required to sever the relationship with your family. Unfortunately, I think that is abusive. Especially, we've had panels with estranged adult children at our meetings, and I just want to stress this too, that very often, even though the child chooses to maybe have a strained relationship or cut ties, they still love their parents, which is something that surprised me initially. But they do. They love their parents. They just might be in a situation where the relationship isn't possible at this moment. Maybe it is because of a boyfriend or a daughter-in-law, or their dad won't allow them to have a relationship with mom, and those kinds of things. But I do want to stress that adult children love their parents generally, is what I've found when we've had the panels on with the adult children. And so as parents, we sometimes question, and say, I was a good parent. I don't understand. They don't love me. I think they do. I really do. So if you're an estranged parent right now, your child loves you. They do.
Absolutely. I would agree that that bond between mom and child, dad and child, is so strong. And in my work with, adults who are suffering distance from a parent, whether they are estranged or the person has passed on and healing wasn't possible, they mourn and yearn for that connection, as particularly if the parent was a good enough parent, if the parent was accessible and there. And that's why I really believe in trying to come together through some form of therapy, because, as you say, one of the signs of an abusive relationship is a person who starts alienating you from loved ones. And it may feel initially, for some people, it feels like love. It's like, oh, they want me all to themselves. This is so lovely. We're in our little love nest. I'm so loved. But then you realize that they're cutting you off from your mom or your sister or your dad. Then it's your friends, and it's your coworkers. And it is definitely abuse, because you are taking away someone's personal autonomy. And to take away family, which again, I go back, it is that foundational, even if you live on opposite sides of the earth, right? Opposite sides of the earth, you can really feel connected to that parent because they've known you all your life. They know you through and through. And to have somebody take that connection away, whether it's intentional or I don't see how it could be unintentional, because trying to get somebody away from their own family, I've actually never seen it be anything but intentional, because it is manipulative.
But they do it subtly. It's very subtle. Yeah.
Yes. And well, that's the nature of manipulation, isn't it? And it's very subtle. And then before you know it, you're stuck in it, and you too feel ashamed, because how did you get there? How could you have possibly chosen a partner who wouldn't look out for your best interests? So shame can be on both sides, on the child's side for how did I do this, or how did I let this happen? And then the adult side who's saying, I'm so ashamed because all of the other families out there, again, social media, comparison, all of the other families out there are so happy. And I'm seeing all these pictures of the moms and the dads and the weddings and the grandkids and this and that. And I alone am broken. And as you said, the truth is there are a mounting number of people who are estranged from their kids.
They're estimating right now, a recent study was 1 in 4 families this is affecting. And, we're starting to see the storylines, people talking about it in mainstream media. There's been articles written, in the New Yorker. Dr. Phil recently had a show on estrangement, entertainment television. He's out there to get ratings. But the fact that he's just having a conversation about it, to me, is encouraging, because I just think the more we can get out there that people hear estrangement, that they think, I thought I was the only one, it just will start a healing and a path of maybe correcting a way that we've taken as a society that's just not great for anybody, especially grandchildren who are robbed of that relationship with grandparents. It is heartbreaking. I have one person who's been a part of my group that her grandson came up to her and said, Nana, why did you quit me? Because she's not allowed to see. Right. Because she's not allowed to see them. And she had a close relationship with both of her grandsons. And so it's heartbreaking. And, these young children, or even older children, are caught in the middle, right? Because they love grandma and grandpa, right? And yet their parents sometimes are not allowing them to have that relationship. So it's really heartbreaking for everybody involved.
Absolutely. And a piece with the grandkids too is I'm a firm believer in passing on tradition. And tradition, grandparents are often the keepers of family traditions and the ones who have the extra time, to create the special this and the special that and pass down all of these things that keep us linked to parts of our history, parts of prior generations that are so important because they give us a sense of meaning in life, a sense of where we came from, and also who we want to be moving forward. And as a firm believer in the power of love, I believe that for the parents out there who are estranged, remember, if you get support, you hold steady, you reach out an olive branch, a card, now and again, staying steady. There will be a day, we hope, right, where that child will be in just that right place to accept it. Of course, honoring their boundaries as well. And also for the adult children out there who are listening, if there is a place in your heart for reaching out to your estranged parent, to offer them an olive branch, a baby step toward connection, because life's too short. It is far too short and far too precious. And to let unspoken things or even spoken things get in the way of creating healthy, stronger connections, because it's really all we have in the end. No matter how many material things we have in the world, it's love that keeps us going.
You are so right. You are absolutely right. And it's imperfect love. I mean, there's no perfect thing out there, a perfect family, a perfect mom, a perfect child. It's just not. The very first family was imperfect and dysfunctional. A brother killed another brother, so it's been going on for thousands of years. So I think if we can just find grace in our heart for both, children and parents, to find grace in our heart. And I will tell you that when my daughter reached out to us, we never went back. We just moved forward. So if you are going to try and reconnect, either as an adult child or as a parent, you just got to go forward. And we have had a few discussions along the way. It's been 2 years since we've been reconnected. The most recent one, that's another little side bit. If you estrange once, chances are high that you will estrange again. So my daughter did it twice with the
oh my,
same young man was involved. But we never asked why. We just loved on her and brought her into our arms because she allowed us to, and just moved forward. And I think that's, you can't look back. You just got to keep looking forward. And when you talked about getting to the place, if either one extends an olive branch, I think we all, as parents, just who are involved in peace, we try to get to that place where we live in acceptance of our situation the way it is, because sometimes there's not a lot we can do because it's not our choice, but we never give up hope that we will be reconnected with our child, and finding that sweet spot. It's not easy. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint, but ultimately the only thing you can change is yourself and how you feel about something or how you react to something. So working on yourself and ministering to yourself in a way by resources and reading and knowing you're not alone, and joining a support group. And that would go the same for adult children too, knowing that you're not alone. Although with social media would tell you that you're not, but it's just important. It's important to be with others and get that resource to support you through this, and hopefully to move you towards reconnection. Because like you said, family, it's so important, and we need to be together.
It is. And for the parents and the kids, if you're grieving, because remember, this type of loss can often propel us into grief, and realizing that the grieving process of, you're not just losing that child, that adult child, and the grandkids if there are, but you're losing all those hopes and dreams you had for the future. So realizing that grieving is a normal and natural part of the process doesn't mean you give up hope, because unlike a physical death, there's always hope as long as, the individual's on the planet. But please realize that what you are moving through is grief, which gets better over time, but it never goes away. And especially if the child is alive, you are always hoping for them to come back. And as you say, Aimee, get the support that you need. Don't be afraid to reach out, and to realize that love for yourself and for the people that you have in your life and the friends you have, those can be sources, not replacement, but sources of nurturing and joy. When you're ready to infuse yourself with joy, there are other ways to get joy, but certainly the loss of an adult child to estrangement is heart-wrenching. And I wanted to also just say one more piece about the imperfection, because so many people are looking toward a parent and saying, well, they didn't listen well to me, or they messed me up, or this is why I'm estranged, and this. And the truth is, again, just really emphasizing, imperfect love doesn't mean we accept abusive behaviors, but it does mean we make space to realize that all of our actions in life are generally not neutral. They're either reach towards or push aways. And I talk about that a lot in my book, Imperfect Love, that's where our choices, and with families, with friends, that we can choose to reach toward people. And that's where connection is. That's where love is. That's where feel good is. That's where joy is. And if we are pushing away a person who's not abusive, but maybe just imperfect, that we want to really look at, can we reach toward them? Can we make that relationship a priority enough to try to mend it? Because we live in a very quick fix world, and cutting off people, throwing away people, disposing of relationships, it's in some ways an epidemic. And really, again, when we come back to it, our relationships, our love is our most valuable asset. I mean, they are our most valuable asset. So pause before disconnecting from someone when there's some form of hope for reconnection.
I couldn't agree more. And you talked about joy. We have something that we talk about regularly at peace meetings. It's choosing joy. So every day you have a choice, right? You can choose to be sad and depressed and not, get out of bed. You can choose, and I'm not saying it's easy, or you can choose something else. It takes the same energy. So we often say, choose joy. So choose joy today. And we all have something to be grateful for. So having an attitude of gratitude can really help. Maybe you don't have a relationship with your child right now, but you have a home. You have food in your refrigerator. You have a cat. You have a job. Everybody has something to be grateful for. And if you focus on what you do have rather than what you don't, I just think it makes for a better life.
It does. That is, hey, research shows us gratitude matters. Doesn't mean that it takes the grief away, but it does make it easier to bear.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thank you, Aimee, for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure and a delight. Where can our listeners find you?
Well, you can always Google peace and estrangement, and will pop up. Somehow I got embedded. I don't try, but it just happens. It pops up. Or you can just go onto our website, which is peace, and it's PEAC, no E, international.org. So feel free to head to my website. There is a resource tab that will list lots of different options for you to get help. There's also a tab that has find a group. So if you wanted to join a support group, you can go there. My email address is on there, so you can, with a direct link. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're happy to help over here at Peace.
Thank you so much. And listeners, again, that's Peace, Parents of Estranged Adult Children. And Aimee, again, so grateful to you for your wisdom and your energy. And listeners, thank you for joining us in this episode of Imperfect Love.
Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Remember, you have the power to transform your life and love fearlessly, if imperfectly, and it's my privilege to help you along the way. You can find more life-changing content, including my books and other podcast episodes, at drcarlamanley.com. Feel free to submit your own confidential questions through my website. I'll do my very best to include your issue on a future episode. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Until we connect again, this is Dr. Carla Marie Manley wishing you oceans of blessings and love. Please note, this podcast is psychoeducational in nature and is not intended to replace formal mental health support. Please contact your healthcare provider or emergency hotline if you need psychiatric care. And as always, please take good care of your amazing, wonderful self.